Hi, and welcome back to the Citizen channel. Hope you're all staying safe and well. And today, yes, the champions, that's what we are. And we're going to have our 21-22 season player ratings. We did one at the end of December. For the half year, we played 19 games, so that was quite interesting. I'll tell you the result of that in a minute. I'll stick it on the links if you want to go and watch that. Very interesting because there's been certain changes, yeah. So we're going to have a look back at the Premier League season 21-22. A successful one in the end, wasn't it? With both my ratings and, of course, the Manchester Evening News ratings as well. I'll give you theirs. And there are slight differences, although more or less we sort of agree at the end on the key ones, in all fairness. Just slight differences up and down. You know, I might have something third and they might have it fourth or something like that. But we'll get into that anyway. So as I said, we did the original back in December. I think it was the 29th of December, somewhere around that, when we played our 19th game of the season. And the top five after 19 games, quite an interesting looking bunch, actually. Number 5 was Ruben Diaz. For me, in player ratings, when they're all averaged out, as I say, this is purely on the scores that were given for each game that I do every game. And there was actually Ruben Diaz was 6th with the Manchester Evening News. Phil Foden was 4th for me and joint 3rd with the Manchester Evening News. And a joint 3rd as well for the M.E.N was Rodri, and it was 3rd for me as well. And in 2nd spot for me, yes, Jack Grealish. Yeah, I was banging his drum after that for a month or two, and people were commenting, and a lot of people were having a bit of a down on him in January, February, and it's sort of carried on since, hasn't it? But I was saying that, yeah, I had Jack Grealish number 2 in my ratings. He was actually number 1 for the Manchester Evening News, which was mainly Stuart Brennan. So, yeah, I think Simon Bukowski only did about 3 or 4 games this season at most. So we'll class it as Stuart Brennan because he did far more than, say, I think Simon did a lot last season, but not this season. And at number 1, well, my namesake, yes, Bernardo Silva was number 1 at the halfway stage. He was our most impressive player. He was at number 2 for the Manchester Evening News. So a couple of big names missing from that, wasn't there? That have been impressing football fans certainly over the last 2 or 3 months. No KDB. Where was he? What happened to him? But say he had half a season to recover, hasn't he? No Cancello, who was really doing. I mean, that first half of the season, he was sort of getting rave reviews, wasn't he? So it was interesting to see that neither of those were in the top 5 other players as well. That perhaps Mahrez was playing pretty well up to a certain level. Was he taking the penalties, scoring penalties? But we will see as I do this. This is part 1, as I said. I've split it to 2 parts because it's quite long. I'm going to talk a bit about the players as well as the basic stats, if you like. And yeah, obviously, there have been some major turnarounds. There have been some players have dropped down, some players have gone up. The occasional ones have stuck where they are, but very few and far between. So we're going to have a look at these straight stats, and please let me know your thoughts, of course. And at the end of this, when we get to the end of part 2, just let me know what your sort of favourite top 5 are. And it's not as funny, isn't it, when you look back at it? I will comment at the end, but it's, you know, you sort of have different memories to what these stats are showing, probably. So there has to be criteria, doesn't there? There has to be criteria for this. And to qualify, players must have at least started approximately a third of the 38 games. I'll say approximately because obviously the cut-off point became 12, which was what John Stones has managed to. It's all starting. I don't include sub-appearances, so obviously a couple of players, certainly in that Villa game, a couple of players have missed out slightly, but overall it's not going to make a lot of difference. So you have to have a minimum of 12 starts, have started the game, and I don't include ratings from sub-appearances, so they're not taken into account. Right, some honourable mentions, or the guys who didn't quite make the cut because they didn't start 12 league games. We're talking league games, don't forget. I've done an FA Cup one and a Champions League one as well, so check those out. I'll do a link to those as well. Yeah, Mr. Palmer managed 1 game, yeah, the 3-0 home game against Everton, and he got a 6.5 from me and a 7 from the Manchester Evening News, so he did all right. No surprise, really, was it, that Palmer didn't get much. I thought early in the season he might have seen a little bit more, obviously, cup games, stuff like that, but as the season went on, Pep just stuck with his tried and trusted, didn't he? So Mr. Palmer didn't get a lot of chance to show his wares. Perhaps next season, I have a feeling, though, he might be, depending on who we buy and who we get in, etc., that he might be loaned out. I'm not too sure, but we'll have to see what the ins and outs are before that, because he's certainly at a stage now where he should be perhaps playing a few more games. Another player who managed 4 starts for City was Torres, of course, before his injury and his eventual move. He averaged 6.75 for me and 6.5 for the Evening News, so that wasn't bad. Aki's not in our final group. He only managed 10 appearances, a 6.95 average for me and a 6.4 for the Manchester Evening News. And yet, he just never let us down, did he? He sort of stepped in and did his bit. His standout game was probably Brentford away at the end of December, a 1-0 win. You'd probably cast your minds back to that. It was probably one of his best games he played. But he just didn't let us down. I expect similar next season. I don't think he's going anywhere. A shame he missed out at the end of this season with injury. I think he would have got 3 or 4 games in and would have been able to get into this top 15, if you like, and he would have done quite well on that sort of score that I've just give you there. And I think it would be interesting next season. But as I said, he will stay sort of as a backup centre half. I don't think he's going anywhere. And if he's happy to do that, then fair enough. He probably knows that's what he was brought in for, and all credit to him. Zinchenko, and also another honourable mention. Again, only managed 10 starting appearances, and in fact, he managed. Sort of to put his score that I'm going to give you now would have put him quite at the top. It's over 7, so he would have been in the top group of players if he'd managed to get 12 appearances. I averaged him at 7.05, and the Evening News at 7.3. His best performances came perhaps in the last month or so of the season when he was needed. Again, a bit like Aki, steps in. He never let us down. He had another great sub appearance, of course, against Aston Villa. And under the circumstances with Ukraine, etc., a wonderful, wonderful servant this season, and all credit. And I think he got what he thoroughly deserved, applause-wise, and the plaudits after the Villa game, after winning the title. It's nice when he put that flag on the trophy, wasn't it? So, yeah, a very good season by Zinchenko. Absolutely never let us down at all again. Also on 10 starts, Fernandinho, so he misses out as well on the last 15. He certainly did struggle a little bit at times this season. He had 2 or 3 excellent games, especially in the Cup, but he did struggle in league matches, obviously against better opposition, as you'd expect. His sort of best standout game was probably Brentford away and Norwich away, a 1-0 and a 4-0 victory. Correspondingly for those two. And his score for me was 6.8, a 6.8 average over 10 games. That's pretty good. And a 6.6 for the Manchester Evening News. But what a hero. Pleasure to watch him. Obviously, we wished him our best. And please look out. I'll be doing a little furnace special. It's a lot of work involved in it, but there will be a little furnace special. Might be a 2 or 3 parts of that one over the next 2 or 3 weeks. So keep your eyes out for that on Fernandinho, my little tribute and a little look back at his time with us, with the time with City. So there you go. That leaves us with 15 players who started at least 12 games. As I said, John Stones is the sort of minimum, if you like. I almost went down to 10, but I thought, no, I better just stick to 12. So it gives us 15 players. It gives us a top 15. So we're going to look at 15 down to 11 now in this part 1, and obviously the top 10 we'll do in part 2. So hopefully you can join back with me for that one. Only one player started all 38 games. Can you guess who that was? Well, it was Ederson, wasn't it? He was the only player who actually started all 38 league games. As far as outfield players concerned, Cancello, 36 starts. That's not bad, is it? Bernardo, 34 starts. Laporte and Rodri both on 33 starts. So interesting figures. A lot of players averaging around the 20 mark when you get away from those guys. All right, well, let's have a look at our champion class 15 of the 21-22 season. And a bit of a surprise in 15th place. I hope there's no Algerian fans watching this. Mr. Mahrez, Riyad Mahrez is at number 15. On my top 15, his bottom, the Manchester Evening News, he fared a little bit better. He ended up 9th on their list, so it's me being a bit mean. So my apologies, guys. I'm sorry about that. But his second half of the season, if anything, was slightly worse than the first, just about. Obviously, I've scored him. It's still a good score, 6.7. That's not nothing to cry about. It's not a bad score at all. He's obviously up against other good scores. The Manchester Evening News scored him 6.87, so they were a little bit more. His standout game was probably the 4-1 home win against United. as I said, it's a bit of a funny one for me because he was knocking in at a certain stage in the. I remember going on Charlie's vlog and doing my own vlog, and he sort of, for me, became undroppable. Not just because he was scoring the penalties, but I thought he was playing quite well. But then you look back at the stats and the scores, and it sort of doesn't back that up particularly. But for me, just for the fact he could hit those penalties in the top corner until that obviously one at West Ham, he became undroppable and was playing pretty well. And he did end the season very poorly when he played as well. So I think there's got to be still big question marks over him, but it is quiet as far as him leaving the club. And I'm sure we'll have to see what, again, similar to Mr. Palmer and other players, we'll have to see who comes in and who goes out and whether there's going to be a place for him to go. It'd be very interesting to see what happens with Mahrez. But unfortunately, of the guys who qualified, he's number 15 in my list. Right, on to 14. Again, very, very surprised because this guy was pulling up trees the first half of the season. Cancello. I've got Cancello in 14. Perhaps that's me, guys. M.E.N's got him in 8th, so they're a lot better than I am. He plummeted down my ratings, in the second half of the season. I mean, he was actually 8th in mine for the first half, so he's literally dumped himself down to 14th place, so a drop of 6 places. He made 36 appearances, so he kept him busy. Pep kept him busy, and obviously had to switch from right to left as well, didn't he? And he also dropped 3 places the M.E.N ratings as well, so he's actually at number 5 in their half-season ratings, down to number 8. His score, I've got him at 6.75, and the M.E.N's got him at 6.92. His peak, probably United away game, but he did drop in a handful of 5 out of 10s, which didn't do him any good. Spurs away, we'll probably let him off for that one. A lot of players didn't play that well, did they? But obviously it also includes Arsenal and Everton away as well as poor games. If City do get a left-back, of course, so there's obviously murmurings of this lad from Brighton who is very good. I do like him. I expect Cancello to be sort of battling for right-back spot with Walker next season if we do get a left-back. Obviously, we don't get a left-back. I have no qualms with Zinchenko starting there again and Cancello having to battle against him for that left-back spot. Again, that doesn't bother me at all, the way Zinchenko plays. For me, they're very similar. They both got different styles, but they're both very good going forward, and neither are that brilliant defending, so not a lot between them. So it might be an interesting season for Cancello next year because let's face it, he was sort of storming it, wasn't it, a little bit at one stage, but then he's gone off the boil just a little bit. But we'll have to see next season if he can replicate some of his early stuff and sort of get that left back spot or the right back spot, whatever he ends up having to go for. And in 13th, 13th on my list, 11th on the Manchester Evening News, Raheem Sterling. Not a lot of difference in either half of the season. Some okay games, some rubbishy games, some couple of good games thrown in. I mean, my score is 6.76 and the M.E.N was 6.78, so there's not much between us. Rumours that he's on his way, of course. Will he see out the last year of his contract? Or, what's he going to do? If he doesn't want to sign a new contract, will City have any option? But, for me, if he doesn't want to sign a contract and he's not doing it, I wouldn't play him. I'd sit him on the bench all season. But we'll have to see with Sterling, especially in that Villa game when he came on a sub. If we saw more of that sort of stuff from him, we'd be well happy for him to be there. But an insanely frustrating season I've walked down here because he'll have his supporters, but a lot of supporters have certainly given up on him. He's become a bit of a boo boy, which I never try and do to players, but he has sort of had limitations this season, and I don't think anyone can deny that. 23 appearances. His big games included that, remember that back 6-3 against Leicester at home. That was one of his better games. Norwich away, the 4-0. He was good in that. Possibly his worst game. As I said, he didn't have a massive bad game. He was sort of middle of the road, but it was a 1-1 draw at Southampton, which was down at that one. And that was one of his worst games. A move away certainly won't do him any harm, I don't think. And it might come back and haunt us, unfortunately, but that's how it is. It's just the facts of life. I mean, I don't, someone's going to make that decision, but I think that'll be interesting. Obviously, with the season left, if someone comes in for him, will City be tempted? We'll have to see with Raheem Sterling, won't we? And again, it depends on who's coming in and out. We know we've got Alvarez, definitely. As I'm doing this now, Haaland's supposed to be on a plane. We've heard all that before, so it will matter to see what happens in and out, doesn't it, again? But yeah, Raheem Sterling in 13th spot. The next one in 12th, not much difference. I got him 12th. Manchester Evening News have got him in 13th. And a big surprise again for me, because I thought this guy was so badly missed towards the end of the season that I just thought he'd been playing really well all season. But Kyle Walker we're talking about, of course we are. As I said, I just don't understand why he's down in 12th. But then you look at the games, you look at the scores, etc. And let's face it, we do miss his speed, but purely from a covering point of view, purely from having a bit of pace at the back to come across and cover. Obviously, going forward, doing the constructive things is obviously a little bit weaker, but we did miss that little bit of pace at the end. I mean, you've got some people like Gundogan running back to sort of cover things. It's getting a bit desperate, isn't it? So I said I thought he'd had a good season, but he was always loyal. He always played his, he's one of these guys who'll put it on the line, put his body on the line for you. But obviously, it didn't really show that much in the regular stats. He scored 6.8 for me, which is good. 6.7 for the Manchester Evening News, so a little bit later. 20 appearances. Of course, he missed the last 7 league games, and his better performances were certainly earlier in the season. A 5-0 win against Norwich at home, and the Leicester 1-0 win as well. And yeah, despite this low rating, I must admit, as we got to the crux, got to the nub of this season, we did panic, and I certainly panicked. I think a lot of people panicked because we did look a little bit slow, a bit labouring at the back. But yeah, I think next season him and Cancello for right back spot, battling that out. I don't see any changes to that. As I say, we're bringing the left back as well. Zinchenko on any other left back, plus Walker and Cancello to fight over the right back spot. I think that's probably reasonable next season. And before we go, we're going to have a look at number 11, who is bottom of the Manchester Evening News, but is 11 in mine. Yeah, and a guy who's been causing a few arguments and words on the internet. Of course, we're talking Ederson, aren't we? Yeah. Despite winning the Golden Glove, he's not been impressing a few people. A lot of people saying we should get rid, which is a bit harsh. I understand what people are saying, but again, it's the style Pep wants to play. I've scored him 6.83 average. Manchester Evening News only 6.42, so that's why he's well down there. I mean, I'm not overly sure his distribution has been as impressive this year, but perhaps defences and other teams have sussed him out. But I think it has been excellent at times. Don't get me wrong; he has that little knack of chipping things over into the middle of third of the pitch rather than the straightforward assists or anything silly like that, which get harder and harder to do because people are aware of it. But I think he's become slightly less reckless this season. I don't think he's been as I think he's been a lot calmer this season. Look at the clearance off the line against Liverpool. He just does it a bit calm. There's been the odd game where he's looked a bit nervy. But I thought he's been okay. I mean, there's no chance of Pep doing anything. There's no chance of Pep dumping him and getting another keeper anyway, guys. So whoever's whinging about him, not a lot is going to happen. Of course, he made the 38 appearances, played in every single league game, and his standout games were Leicester away, a 1-0 win, and Villa away, a 2-1 win. And possibly his most forgettable game, which I don't think he was alone in this one, was Palace at home in the 2-0 defeat. It's always hard to judge with Ederson, isn't it? Because he's given so little to do match by match. And you think of the Villa game, they had 4 shots and scored 2 goals. I mean, that's the problem. Obviously we don't make that many chances. And if he doesn't make a save, it looks as though it's all his fault. But I think people have been a little bit unfair on Ederson, but as I say, certainly the Manchester Evening News didn't rate him anyway. That's for sure this season. But I had him down in 11, but I don't think he's going anywhere anytime soon. Do you guys? Well, there you go. There's the first lot. So we've got another 10 guys to look at. Who do you think? Who do you think is going to be number 1? I'd say some interesting ones in this top 10. A couple of guys who shot up and probably 1 or 2 who shot down as well. So please join me for part 2 if you can of this little player ratings of 21-22 for the champions. Of course, that's what we are, and find out who the top 5 is, and more importantly, who the top dog is. Let's find that out. Anyway, join me soon, guys. Thanks for watching. Please, I only ask one thing, don't I? Please stay safe, Blues. Come on, City. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.